All right, we are on the record. A few matters to take care of regarding the defense case. Mr. Nelson?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense intends to arrest. A colloquy relevant to the Fifth Amendment privilege.
Yes. I'll just be able to do this. So, Mr. Chauvin, if you could use this more wireless mic. And you can remain seated for this. And Mr. Nelson, make sure you're close to the microphone.
Mr. Chauvin, you and I have had several discussions throughout the course of my representation of you relevant to your right to testify or to choose to remain silent, correct?
That's correct.
And during the course of our representation, it's fair to say that you and I have had this conversation multiple times, correct?
Correct.
You understand that you have a Fifth Amendment privilege to remain silent. Do you understand that?
Yes.
You understand that if you choose to exercise that right to remain silent, neither the state nor the court can comment on your silence as a sign or an indication of your guilt. Meaning they can't say, he didn't get up and defend himself, so equate your silence with guilt. Do you understand that?
Yes.
All right. Now, you also understand that you can waive that right and testify. Do you understand that?
Yes, I do.
You understand that if you chose not to testify, or if you did in fact testify, you would be subject to cross-examination by the state of Minnesota.
Yes.
You understand that if you were cross-examined by the state, we could not attempt to limit the scope of your testimony. The state would be given broad latitude to ask you questions. Do you understand that?
Yes.
We've had this conversation repeatedly, correct?
Correct.
I have repeatedly advised you that this is your decision and your decision alone, right?
Correct.
I have advised you, and we have gone back and forth on the matter, would be kind of an understatement, right?
Yes, it is.
But after a lengthy meeting last night, we had some further discussion, agreed?
Correct.
And have you made a decision today whether you intend to testify or whether you intend to invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege?
I will invoke my Fifth Amendment privilege today.
Okay. Mr. Chauvin, I'm going to address you directly because the decision whether or not to testify, let me take this off, is entirely yours. In other words, it's a personal right. Mr. Nelson makes a lot of the decisions in trial, but one he cannot make for you is whether or not you testify. And he can give you advice, and you can take that advice or reject that advice. But the decision ultimately has to be yours and not his. Is this your decision not to testify?
It is, Your Honor.
All right. Do you have any questions about your right to remain silent or to testify on your own behalf?
Not at this time, I don't.
All right. Has anyone promised anything or threatened you in any way to keep you from testifying?
No promises or threats, Your Honor.
Do you feel that your decision not to testify is a voluntary one on your behalf?
Yes, it is.
Now, in addition to that, I'm convinced then that this is your personal decision and that you are aware of your rights, but there is a jury instruction that may be read to the jury. This, again, is the one that you get to weigh in on. It's not for your lawyer to make the decision. Again, he can give you advice, and I don't even want to know what the advice is, but you can accept the advice or reject the advice as to whether or not to give this instruction. If you would like, I can read this instruction to the jury. It's titled, Defendant's Right Not to Testify. The state must convince you by evidence beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant is guilty of the crime charged. The defendant has no obligation to prove innocence. The defendant has the right not to testify. This right is guaranteed by the federal and state constitutions. You should not draw any inference from the fact that the defendant has not testified in this case. Do you understand that instruction?
Yes, Your Honor.
Would you like that read to the jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Have you had enough time to talk to Mr. Nelson about whether that's a good idea or not?
I have, Your Honor.
All right. And so I will read that to the jury on your request.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else regarding the defense case before we proceed to talk about rebuttal? All right. We'll have you rest in front of the jury then. And we could actually take the microphone back. Ms. Voss, thank you.